how does transcendental sound awakens our spirituality basically? How does it provide spiritual fulfillment?
Okay.
Yeah. So I would say that there is a transcendental sound is not just the holy name. It is whole Krishna Katha. It is that which will awaken us to a spiritual awareness. So to expand that example further, the example I gave is that the mind is like an inner screen and the world out there is the outer scene. The soul is the inner seer. So in a sense the soul is different from the whole world.
Correct.
But the soul's consciousness is projected onto the material world. And that's why the soul is experiencing various phenomena, happiness and distress, based whatever is appearing on the inner screen, pleasure or pleasant or unpleasant stimuli. Now imagine a child is watching a horror movie and the child is horrified, scared, trembling, maybe sweating. Now the mother is right next to the child, but the child is so caught in the horror movie, if the mother touches the shoulder of the child thinks the monster from the movie has come. So in that situation, the mother wants to help the child. The child is so engrossed on the inner screen, on the horror movie, that the mother cannot contact the child directly. So say you can envision, say if there is that TV screen is there, and the mother has another remote, and she uses the remote to change what appears on that TV screen. And there maybe they have shot some pictures or some movie of the mother and the child being together, playing together, enjoying together, and then suddenly the screen over there changes, or that comes as another channel over there, and the child starts saying, hey, who is this? I know this person, she's so nice, she loves me. And gradually, now then some other channel might also be going on, this is also another channel that is going on. As the child starts watching this more and more, then the child starts getting, oh, this is my mother, she loves, she's a nice person. And then as he starts becoming more and more tuned to her, then after that, mother comes and touches her, touches this child. Oh, my mother, he will hug her. So similarly for us, we at present can't perceive any reality beyond what is projected in our mind. Even we actually don't even perceive the physical world. We perceive also the physical world also as it is projected on our mind. So what Krishna does is he manifests in the physical world, be it as the deities. Of course, he comes himself as the avatars also, but as the deities, as the holy name, as the scriptures, even as devotees who act as representatives, and through them they start manifesting on our inner screen. And to the extent we tune into that channel, to the extent we start connecting with Krishna's manifestations in this world, to that extent our spiritual sensibility or spiritual faculty starts awakening. And then as we become more and more familiarized with Krishna, as he is manifested in the inner screen through being in the outer scene, then we start becoming receptive to Krishna's presence within us also. So eventually, so we could say first we need Krishna in the outer physical scene. We need to go to a temple. We need to be in physically spiritual association so that we can be spiritually stimulated. If we keep exposing ourselves to such stimuli over a period of time, they will become impressed on our inner screen. So even when we are not with devotees, we'll be remembering devotees. Even if we are not directly in a devotional environment, we'll remember devotional philosophy, devotional service, devotional impressions will keep coming. And so that's when the mind becomes spiritualized. And eventually after that, it's just the soul, when they gets liberated from the world, the soul doesn't need the body and doesn't need the mind also. All of them are left behind and pure soul goes back to the spiritual world. So eventually we can perceive Krishna even without the inner screen. So that is, so the sound, or in general the process of bhakti-yoga is called a sensory spirituality. It is not just spirituality, but spirituality is made accessible through the senses. Rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhakti ruchyate. So through the senses, when we connect with Krishna, then we move forwards and then we can perceive him even beyond the senses. Sukham atyantikam yattad buddhi grahayam atindriyam. That is happiness that is experienced beyond the senses. That is experienced directly by the conscious faculty of the soul. So that's how spiritual sound It first appears through the physical scene on the inner screen, and then gradually it awakens our inner seer's realization that the supreme seer is with us. That's how the whole process takes place gradually.
My question really,
if you consider what appears on the inner screen, it could come either from the physical world, it could just come from imagination, or it could come, we could say, from the spiritual manifesting in the material, or in the physical, or spiritual manifesting in the mental. So, for most of the stimuli in the world which we perceive, most sounds, they are just physical sound, they are coming from the physical realm. Most stimuli, they are just physical, or they are the most, they are mental. But the names of Krishna are directly transcendental. So the transcendence is manifesting at the physical level, and through that it is taking us to the spiritual level. So we could say, someone chanting, is chanting meant to be inside out or outside in? Inside out means, we feel devotional and we call out to Krishna. So the devotion inside is expressed outside through chanting. That will be inside out chanting. Or outside in chanting means, through the physical act of chanting, gradually the connection with Krishna is established, and then we start experiencing spiritual emotional relationship with Krishna. Now, many times our
is the latter, right?
Even now, we do experience some spiritual connection. Now, it may not be necessarily that the soul is being awakened, but even if the soul perceives Krishna on the inner screen, that also, that is the mind. The mind is basically
like
where, so like you have your house and somebody who comes at the gate, you don't have to physically go and see over there. You have a mirror over here, you have a screen over, you can see over there. It's like the outer world is projected onto our inner screen. That's the mind, and the soul is the inner seer.
Soul is seeing the mind.
Yeah, soul is seeing the mind.
Soul is seeing outside.
Exactly.
It's a mirror.
It's a screen which can act in various ways. So yeah, so most of the time our chanting is meant to be outside in. Of course, sometimes it's just outside. There is no inside only. There's a physical utterance and it doesn't even register inside, which is just the way we are conditioned. But because it is connected with eternal spiritual reality, that is why there is the possibility or the potential of a spiritual awakening through this sound. Now, we could conceivably say that just repeating any other sound also can bring some calmness. It's possible, because nowadays people talk about affirmations. You just affirm, everything is all right, everything is all right, everything is all right. And thinking like that also can help. But it can help to the extent that it may bring us to goodness. Wow, this has gone wrong, this has gone wrong, this is wrong. Things are okay, things are okay, things are okay, don't worry, calm down. Sometimes it may help. See, affirmations help if they can remind us of a reality that we already accept to be true. That is, God is in control, He'll take care of things, calm down. So, if I have faith in God, then the affirmation will help. But if I don't, if the affirmation is something which I just don't believe, then the affirmation can be actually psychologically damaging, because I don't accept it and I'm trying to repeat to myself. So suppose somebody is somebody thinks that they don't look very good. They're fat, or they're whatever they are, and I say, no, I'm very attractive. I'm very attractive. Now that is something which then, that kind of affirmation can be damaging. But an affirmation way of something which we accept as true, but circumstantially we tend to forget that. So then repeating that can also help.
Like God is there.
Yeah, God is in charge, He will take care of things. So, even if we have shloka recitation, sometimes calms us down. Macchitta sarvadurgani mat prasadat tarishyasi. If you become conscious of me, you will pass over all obstacles by my grace. Of course, shloka also has spiritual power because they are connected with Krishna and coming from Krishna. But I am just giving that as an example. If there is an affirmation that we already accept as true, then affirming it again and again can calm us. but it is not really connected with spiritual reality. So it is direct spiritual reality that manifests through the holy name.
So just staying on that concept, we talk about
Screen, how does purification happen? I give the example, say if in our computer we have visited a particular site, say Bollywood.com many times, then we come to a temple or we come to a spiritual program and hear about Bhagavad Gita, and then now we want to search in Google for Bhagavad Gita. We type B and immediately it comes Bollywood.com. So what has happened, just like there are preferences which are stored in our browser, similarly the actions that we have done in the past, they are stored as impressions within us.
Right.
And the past impressions become the present propositions. The past, so if somebody has drunk alcohol a lot, those past impressions will come. If they pass by a bar, let's go and drink. But somebody has never drunk, there's no impression over there. So if their browser history blank, if they type B, there's no Bollywood.com, is not going to come. So basically, for us, we could say purification happens in multiple ways. One is by simply repetition. If I just keep visiting Bhagavad Gita again and again and again and again, bhagavad-gita.com, then if I type B, Bhagavad Gita will come. So similarly, by mechanical repetition of devotional activity also, the fresh impressions are formed in the mind and they can remove the negative impressions. And that's how people, then by mechanical repetition of a particular activity, even people who are not even spiritual or devotional, they can also form new habits. And they can also conceivably break old behavioral patterns. So we could say this is simply the repetition method. Bhakti also involves, so purification basically means the unwanted propositions stop coming. So, okay, so Bollywood.com just stops coming over there. So for us, if we consider, there will be 3 stages. First is intellectual conviction, that okay, I don't want to visit Bollywood.com. I don't want to do these things. So that is what we get by our study of scriptures. That this is something which is unwanted and I need to free myself from it. The conviction is not purification. Conviction is simply the decision or the resolution that this is where I want, this is where I don't want to go, this is where I want to go.
Determination.
Yeah, determination.
Choosing the right.
The second we could say is so intellectual conviction, then devotional application. Devotional application means that I just go to bhagavad-gita.com again and again and again. Krishna says, wherever the mind wanders, bring it back to me. So that is like choosing, doing repetition again and again. But the third is, then there is spiritual purification, where the unwanted tendencies just disappear. So in terms of the inner screen, when we keep Krishna, when we keep invoking Krishna on that inner screen, then the unwanted material things will stop manifesting over there. Those propositions will either not come that forcefully and that frequently, or eventually they may stop coming entirely. So this is how purification gradually takes place. And for us, so there is conviction, there is application, and then there is purification.
Right.
So now purification will take time in general. That's why we need regular, we could say, boosting of our conviction, by which the application will go on. So if there is no conviction, and the application also stops most of the time. So if I am not convinced that I should visit bhagavad-gita.com, then okay, sometimes I go to Bhagavad Gita, sometimes I go to Bollywood. Then if I just keep oscillating, then the Bollywood still stays over there and it will keep coming back.
Right. There was just one.
Well, it is we interact with the world in 2 ways. The karmendriyas and the jnanendriyas. So the jnanendriyas, we take in impressions from the outer world or take in stimuli, perceptions from the outer world, and through the karmendriya, we act in the outer world, the working senses. So now both require consciousness. So with respect to the, if we consider, the mind is like this integration point for the impressions coming from the senses. That's the inner screen. And then the mind makes a decision, or rather at the level of the mind, the decision is conceptualized internally. Okay, there's fire, there's water over there, I'll walk this way. So I perceive there's water over there, I might slip over there. Let me walk this way. So now in this case, consciousness, there are two metaphors for consciousness itself. One we can use is like a torch. Yatha sarvagatra yatha akashasthito nityam vayu sarvatra gomaha tatha sarvani bhutani mats. No. Yatha prakashayatyeka krutsnam lokamimam ravi kshetram kshetritah krishnam prakashayati bharata. Krishna says over here that just as the sun illumines the world, universe, similarly the soul illumines the body with consciousness. So here Krishna is talking about consciousness as flowing outwards from the soul towards the body and activating the body. Now Krishna also talks about consciousness flowing inwards in 2.70, well known as that apuryamana achala patishtam samudramapah pravishanti advad tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve sashanti mapnoti na kama kama. He says that just as rivers flow into an ocean, but the ocean doesn't get disturbed, similarly desires flow into the consciousness of a self-realized person, but that person is not disturbed. So here Krishna is talking about the inward flow. So we could say that there is certainly the flow of sensory perceptions, but how can sensory perceptions take place unless there is some agency which is going outwards and coming back inwards? So for example, now say there is some noise going on in another room in the kitchen, some vessels are being moved around. Now if my consciousness, at least in some fragmental way, is not going in that direction, I won't perceive it also. So in that sense, consciousness has to go outwards to take in impressions and come back. So consciousness sometimes compared to a stream of light, but normally stream of light only goes one way. Light goes from, say, the torch to the object. But consciousness is not just like a stream. Consciousness is not like a stream of light alone. It could be, say, it's like a stream of light, but then it is also like bidirectional, where the information is gathered and that's brought back to the soul. So now, with respect to both, there can be intentional and unintentional. That means, say, I want to talk with you, but suddenly I think of this, I think of that. So my consciousness goes in that direction. Similar, or for that matter, say we are walking on the road and we want to drive on the road, but then we see some say movie hoarding or some sense object, and the consciousness goes over there. So then means those impressions also come in. So basically for us, the focus of consciousness means that we direct it in the direction that we don't want it to, and we take in only the impressions that we want it to take in. That's how we become spiritualized.
So basically creating a filter.
My understanding would be that there are different, even in the Vedic tradition, there are different models for explaining the inner reality. So even with respect to theories of matter, there is Sankhya and there is Vaisheshika. So now Vaisheshika is basically we could say the atomic theory of matter. Now in Western history, Western intellectual history, there have been two broad theories of matter. Traditionally, what from the Plato it was called the elemental theory of matter. I mean, there are the fundamental blocks of matter are elements. Now this element is different from what in the periodic table we call as elements. They're simply material components. But then for various reasons that theory was not accepted, and now the current view of matter is of atomic theory of matter, where we may have various things which appear as elements to us, but if we go further down, those elements are made of atoms. Now of course you can go further down and subatomic particles are there. Quantum physics says everything is waves. So it's not necessarily that the atomic theory of matter is necessarily the complete or the accurate description of reality. But that is one model which has been mainstream accepted. So now so in the Vedic tradition also there is the Sankhya which talks about the elemental theory of matter, and Vaisheshika which talks about the atomic theory of matter. So these two, how exactly they are to be reconciled, that's a whole different universe. So just as there are two different theories of matter within the Vedic tradition, so I would say, with respect to understanding of subtle body also, there are different models. So the Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita, they derive, if you consider these six systems of philosophy existed in the past also. Now we could look at scriptures from a transcendental perspective, that everything is by the plan of the Lord. But you could also look at scripture from a historical perspective, in the sense that when Shukadeva Goswami spoke the Bhagavatam, at that time there were already certain schools of thought that were present, and Parikshit Maharaj knew many of them. So now Shukadeva Goswami presents all of them, all the existing schools of thought, or at least major sections of them, in a devotional context, with a devotional theistic worldview. So the Bhagavatam primarily draws on Sankhya. It doesn't draw so much on the Vaisheshika. So within this model, in the Sankhya model, the karana-sharira is not talked about so much.
Correct.
So it's just like in Ayurveda you have digestive fire. In allopathy there is no concept of digestive fire.
Correct.
So in science they say that facts are theory laden. Facts exist in the context of theories. So it's not a theory free fact. Some facts are theory free. Like all of us have an intestine, we have a lungs, we have a heart. These are theory free facts. But that health is because of the balance of kapha vata pitta, or health is because of the balance of certain homeostasis or biochemical balances in the world. These are these are theory laden facts. So basically the concept of the karana-sharira, causal body, is not something which is primarily used in Sankhya as it is understood in our tradition. Now, but still, if you want to look at it, what it means, so we could say karana-sharira is sometimes similar to the sukshma sharira, something similar to the sukshma sharira. There are some few differences over there, because if we consider that many of the other schools of thought, Sankhya itself was an analysis of matter. But the analysis of matter can be done in a theistic way, it can be done in a non-theistic way also. So basically in the Indian tradition there are three systems of Sankhya. They call it 24 Sankhya, 25 Sankhya and 26 Sankhya. 24 Sankhya is materialistic Sankhya. You just analyze matter and that's all that exists. 25 Sankhya is that you could say monistic Sankhya. There is matter and there is consciousness. The Bhagavatam Sankhya is 26 Sankhya. There is matter, there is finite consciousness and there is infinite consciousness. So similarly with respect to the karana, so the karana-sharira refers to now this could be explained in a theistic way also, but if you consider say Buddhism does not accept the existence of any Ishvara, any God. But then what fuels transmigration? So they say that all impressions are stored in the subtle body, or whatever the word may be different, and those impressions are what cause the next body to take place. But we also say the same thing, but we say that it is under divine supervision. But they say that those impressions themselves are the cause. So in that sense the karana-sharira becomes the karana, the cause. So if we consider that it is one cause, but there is also the supreme cause. If you see that in that context, then the karana-sharira and sukshma-sharira can be, in some models, be seen as same. But in the sukshma-sharira, the emphasis is on the subtlety. In the karana-sharira, in the terminology, the focus is on the causality. So focus on causality means that they think that this itself produces spiritual reality. So this itself produces the next body. So I would say this is one understanding, but in the way in which matter is analyzed within the bhakti tradition, the karana-sharira is not given that much emphasis. So it's just a different model of looking at the world.
What about these that they talk about?
Is so purely devoted, as revealed at the end of the Bhagavatam, towards the end of his life as revealed in the Bhagavatam.
And knowledgeable.
That as compared to that, the Bhishma, the way he functions, say, out of out of being just loyal to Duryodhana, all that seems to be almost contradictory. Yeah, this is a complex subject, and in general, this narrative can be understood at two levels. At one level, it is that Bhishma, if you want to understand it from the morality, we could say moral perspective, the transcendental perspective.
Right.
From the moral perspective, Bhishma ends up committing niyamagraha, sticking to the letter of the law while forgetting the purpose of the law.
Correct.
So he had taken a vow that he would always stand by the side of the ruler of the throne. Now he could not have envisioned that at that time later somebody like Duryodhana would take up the throne. So now he feels, this is the word I have given, this is what I have to follow. And he sticks to it through thick and thin. He does make his displeasure and even opposition to Duryodhana very strongly expressed on many occasions. He does not express it as strongly as does Vidura, because he feels bound by his word of honor. Now we live in a very different culture where the concept of word of honor, it is not really that important, given that much importance. And how important the word of honor is, we can see that even in Duryodhana, when Arjuna goes and asks for the 5 arrows, Duryodhana also gives those arrows. Now, if you say that if Duryodhana was so honor bound, then why didn't he return the kingdom only to the Pandavas earlier, right after? So at that time he tries to screw out of the way by saying that actually you did not complete the Agyatwas, that you were detected before the 1 year was completed. That's his reasoning. That's why I say you have to go back to the forest again. Now there is some difference among Duryodhana and Bhishma when they detect Arjuna on the Matsya battlefield. So at that time you can have solar lunar calculations based on which exact month duration will vary. So anyway, my point I am making is that Duryodhana at that time feels that I am not honor bound because they have not yet completed their, they were detected beforehand.
Right.
But word of honor was considered extremely important. Even Duryodhana followed it. When it was a case of black and white, he says, I have given my word that I will give you, I will give it to you. So in that sense, Bhishma wanting to honor his word is understandable in that context where word of honor was taken very, very seriously. But so we could say that Bhishma commits niyamagraha, and rather than saying that, a safer way to say it is that through this incident, we are taught by the example of Bhishma how the danger of niyamagraha. Rather than saying he committed niyamagraha, this action demonstrates the mistake of niyamagraha. That's at the ethical level we can learn. Sometimes we can just take it at transcendental level, and our acharyas also explained that way, that Krishna wanted to demonstrate using Bhishma that no matter how exalted a person you are, if you go against God, you will be destroyed. So Bhishma voluntarily chose to do that, to support Duryodhana throughout, to stay silent when Draupadi was dishonored. By his staying silent at that time, Krishna manifested and Krishna protected Draupadi as by offering her the unlimited cloth. Similarly, the whole Kurukshetra battle in which Krishna intervened in various ways and protected Arjuna. So Bhishma's opposition became on many occasions one of the reasons for Krishna to manifest his Bhakta-vatsalya. So Krishna, by Bhishma's apparently inimical attitude, Krishna manifested his Bhakta-vatsalya towards the Pandavas. But that Krishna had done that Bhishma had done all this not in actually a mood of hostility towards the Pandavas or Krishna, but in a mood of devotion only. That was demonstrated when Krishna came in front of him. So throughout the Mahabharata, Krishna is manifesting his Bhakta-vatsalya for the Pandavas. But at the end, he is manifesting his Bhakta-vatsalya for Bhishma. Tathape ekanta bhakteshu pashya bhupanukampitam yanme syunstajata sakshat krishno darshanamagata Therefore, he says, Bhishma says that, therefore, O king, just see how merciful is this Lord. That because I was his unflinching devotee, therefore at the moment of death, he himself has come to give me his darshan. So it might seem a little audacious for Bhishma to say, I am unflinching devotee. But he is not saying that to glorify himself. He is saying that to glorify how the Lord reciprocates with one who is unflinching. And his focus is, oh Yudhishthir, you also don't flinch. I was called upon to do a difficult duty, that of fighting against my Lord. I did that and just see how he's rewarded me. And now you also are called to do a difficult duty, that is that you have to administer this kingdom, which has come to you after a great amount of bloodshed. But do this duty and the Lord will reciprocate with you. So that's how we understand Bhishma's actions.
So at that time,
That I have to fight against the fortify the Kauravas because I am bound by their wealth. There's a verse which comes like that. He speaks this to Yudhishthir just before the battle starts. So Yudhishthir comes to seek his blessings, and he says, I would love to fight for you, but I cannot. I am bound. And he says, I am bound by their wealth. And he says that he says that we can't bind wealth, but wealth binds us. He says a verse like that over there. So now, in my understanding, that statement is seen as a statement, to be seen as a statement of humility. I am just bound. Is it that, see, if Bhishma could live as a celibate while living in royalty, while living with so many, in royalty there are all beautiful women, maid servants as well as queens. If he could remain as a celibate in that, could he not have lived as a renunciate, just as going to the forest? No, he could have, he didn't need wealth. So to say that he is bound by the wealth, he could say, I don't need the wealth at all. And he could have done that. Generally, Aishwarya is primarily needed for bhoga.
correct.
So if one doesn't have the desire for bhoga, then to say what is the attachment to Aishwarya will go down substantially. So to say that Bhishma was bound by the wealth, he says, okay, I have eaten their salt, that's why I have to fight for them. That just is the expression of humility. Because if he felt himself so bound like that, then he was not like exactly an unquestioning servant. Time and time again he opposed Duryodhana. I tried to give good advice to Duryodhana.
Yeah.
So it was not that he was a.
But he was always just following.
Blind.
He was not. He was definitely not like a unthinking slave or something like that. Or that I have to be just doing whatever they tell me to do. But at that particular point, Bhishma has tears in his eyes, and he feels how harsh is the duty of a Kshatriya, that you have to fight against your loved ones. So he's saying, I'm bound by the Kauravas' wealth. That's more of an expression of humility rather than his actual motive for fighting. His actual motive was, so we could say there are three levels. One is that the external reason that he gives, I have to fight because I have lived on their wealth. Now, actually speaking, it is not even the Kauravas' wealth; it is his wealth,
It is his wealth.
because he is also part of the royal family, and in fact, his claim was higher, and he voluntarily renounced that claim, although he was the eldest son.
Right.
So to say that, it's like say, if we have a grandfather in our family, and the grandfather is saying, I am living on your money. Well, okay, if you had earned the money, that's a different thing. But if the grandfather generation only has passed down the money to you, and for the grandfather to say that I am living on your money is completely inappropriate.
Correct.
So it's that's the expression of humility at that time. So that could be one external reason which he gives. Another level of reason could be that he feels he's bound by his word to always stay by the side of the Kuru ruler. And the innermost reason would be that is how Krishna inspires him to act at that particular time.
Stay by the side of the king.
Yeah, because he had taken a
Dhritarashtra was the king that
because he had taken a vow when his father wanted to marry Satyavati. At that time, he told that Satyavati's father said that, but what, you will become the king? He says, no, I will not become the king. He says, but you may not renounce the kingdom, but your children will want it. He says, no, I will never have children, and I will myself act as a protector of whoever is the king. At that time he had taken that vow. When we practically understand humility and surrender, I put it that humility means to not let our ego come in the way of our purpose. We have a purpose of serving Krishna in our life, and I won't let my ego come in the way. So that means if to do the service, if I have to accept disrespect or humiliation, I am ready to accept that also. But that doesn't mean that I will always be like a push around. If the service, if my service requires that I take a strong stand, then I am ready to take that also. Prabhupada at one level, when he was in India, he was respected as a pious sadhu. When he went to the West, nobody cared for him. He was just an old man, and his early disciples, early followers, they didn't even have the courtesy to, they would just eat food and go away, and he would have to wash their plates. So in a sense, Prabhupada was respected much more in India than in America. But Prabhupada came to America because his service was there. That was his service. His purpose was to share Krishna's message, and he found these people were more genuinely hungry, genuinely eager. But when Prabhupada came back to India, he established the Krishna conscious movement. He at one time there was a program, and in Jaipur the devotees had arranged a Pandal program, and they had made posters, Bhakti-yoga Swami with his foreign disciples. And Prabhupada said, why foreign disciples? Write American and British disciples. And we say, why American and British? Because Indians are enamored by them. So Prabhupada wanted, when that honor or praise or respect or prestige, whatever you want to say, if that would make people take his message more seriously, then Prabhupada wanted that to be used. So there he was ready to, you could say, promote himself. So humility means that sometimes if our services calls for it, then we have to take a strong stand. We have to take a strong position, and that doesn't, if it is done with the intention of service, then it is not contrary to the principles of humility. So humility basically means to stay fixed in the purpose of our service without letting our ego come in the way. But if the service requires that we seek a certain level of respect or a certain level of, we need a certain level of authority, then seeking that is not against the principles of humility. And as far as surrender is concerned, there can be two broad models of surrender. One is Draupadi surrender, where she just raises her hands, Krishna, I surrender to you. The Bhagavad Gita at the end also tells Arjuna, surrender to me. But then, how does Arjuna surrender? It is not by raising his hands up. It is by lifting his bow up to fight. So that is Arjuna's surrender. So that means, if you consider that there are in our life certain situations which are in our control and certain situations which are not in our control, and the magnitude of what is in our control and what is not out of our control also keeps changing in different situations. So for that which is not in our control, we surrender in the mood of Draupadi. It is dependence on Krishna. And for that which is in our control, we surrender in the mood of Arjuna. That is diligence for Krishna. So dependence on Krishna and diligence for Krishna, both are ways of surrender. And in different situations, sometimes the diligence role may have to be taken up very much. Say if say I'm giving a class, then I have to properly prepare for the class. I cannot say I'm dependent on Krishna. So that during the preparation phase,